Good evening, everyone. I'm Brett Comer. I'm the chair of Opto this year and want to welcome you to tonight's webinar. We're going to wait maybe just another minute or two to allow a few others to jump on this. We realize we're competing with World Cup right now, but we'll get going at probably about 8:02, so another minute. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started on tonight's webinar. We did one of these last night with the majority of student applicants, and so tonight it's focused more towards faculty and program directors. Again, I'm Brett Comer. I'm the current chair of Opto. Our current Opto Executive Council includes Judy Liu from Washington University in St. Louis. She's our immediate past chair. Brad De Silva, who's with us tonight. He's our chair-elect. And then our council members are Deb Watson from UC San Diego, Tiffany Chow from Penn, Michael Platt from Boston University, and Michael Yim from Louisiana State University Shreveport. So next slide, please. Tonight's speaker, in this order, I'm going to start out with just a brief introduction. Dr. De Silva will take over, and then Dr. Chow and Dr. Yum will speak, and then Dr. De Silva and I will say a couple more things toward the end. So next slide, please. So we do have some online resources on the Opto website, which are listed here. We'll have these listed later in the program as well. Tonight's session is recorded. If you need to reference it later on, it'll also be on the Opto website. Next slide, please. So tonight's agenda, we're going to start out with application recommendations, followed by interview format and preference signaling. And then a new item for this year is Dr. De Silva and Dr. Liu worked on a new standardized letter of recommendation based on some input to try and improve this for the current times. We'll finish with the combined interview offer date and then also have a question and answer session either through chat or through comments. So next slide. All right, and I'll turn this over to Dr. Silva.
Thanks. We met the applicants last night, and so we went over all these application recommendations. We encouraged them to have their applications done on time so we can start to review them at the end of September and into October. We understand that you may not have all of the materials from the medical schools until October. We encourage them to have 3 to 4 letters, all from otolaryngology faculty. These should obviously be from someone that knows them well. So it's on us as faculty to be able to communicate to the applicant whether we feel comfortable writing a strong, letter of recommendation for that applicant. Certainly anyone that knows them outside of otolaryngology with extended experience in research or maybe another specialty certainly is an option, but we encourage letters from otolaryngologists. And then we also really wanted to make a point about away rotations. If an applicant's coming from a program from a medical school without a home program, then they're encouraged to get letters of recommendation from their away rotations, as that's certainly necessary. But students who have home programs, it's not necessary for them to ask for letters of recommendation from their away rotations. Now, if they have a great, month and they get to know faculty there during that away rotation well, then they can certainly ask for a letter of recommendation. But it's not required. I think applicants often assume that it's required when they do an away rotation to obtain a letter of recommendation. Next slide. So applicants should have passed their USMLE Step 1 or COMLEX equivalent, and Step 2 scores should be available when the applications are released to programs. So we encouraged that last night when we met with the applicants. Otolaryngology, just like last year, has opted out of geographic preferences, so that's not new to the application process this year. Next slide. So for the interview format, sorry, someone say something?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I was going to just jump in, but
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Chow. Yeah, thank you.
yeah, no worries. So yeah, just to cover the interview format briefly, as you probably all remember, during that 2023, 2024 season, coming right out of COVID, it was initially a split between like 50-50 in-person and virtual. And then Opto did a survey with AMC that year to kind of determine preferences on the applicant side of things. And of course, I think as you probably remember, there's a strong preference for in-person interviews, but also with the desire for some cost sharing and or financial support initiatives, which we'll cover in a little bit. Next slide, Beth. And so in particular for the question of whether interview format impacted their ranking decisions, there's a very clear majority of applicants who felt that an in-person interview experience was made them much more likely to rank programs favorably, with nearly 60% of applicants saying that they favored virtual interviews for this. They favored in-person interviews for this reason. Next slide. And so back at that following year, SUO, ADO, and Opto issued a joint statement essentially saying that given this strong preference, we recommended that it was critical to allow all otolaryngology programs the opportunity to conduct in-person interviews. And so as we saw in subsequent years, the vast majority of programs have continued to offer in-person interviews with a hybrid option. This recommendation is really geared towards if at your institution you're receiving any sort of guidance or pushback that's maybe more so pushing towards virtual interviews, since that still is the standard for many larger programs such as internal medicine and pediatrics. But of course, you have the option of doing virtual interviews if your program so chooses. But just being able to keep this in mind that in person is an option, is favored, and we have issued this recommendation. Next slide. So, anticipated for this coming year, as similar to last year, pretty much all programs will be interviewing in person. So applicants are aware of that. And then, some of your programs may choose to offer virtual interviews for, such as students that you know well, that have maybe rotated at your program, or your home students. And so again, that option remains, but generally in person will be sort of the standard. Next slide. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Yim.
All right, thank you, Dr. Chow. So we'll jump into preference signaling. Next slide. I think most of us are familiar with preference signaling. Just a quick recap. So we did the low signal approach for the first 3 years. We tried 3 different numbers. We've since been doing the high signal approach for the past 3 consecutive years. And I think by and large, the general consensus is that this high signal approach has worked really well. There have been increased interview opportunities for signal programs, improved distribution of interview offers, and we'll get into some of the data as we go on. So let's go to the next slide. If you see where the other specialties are at, so a fair number are still utilizing a low number approach. We as a society had previously discussed utilizing gold and silver options, which a handful of specialties are using, but I think we generally agreed that the high signal approach seems to be working well, and so we decided not to pursue that. And if we go to the next slide, you can see that the vast majority of highly competitive surgical subspecialties generally all fall into this high signal program category: neurosurgery, ortho, plastics, urology, and of course, including us as well. Let's go to the next slide. And so some of you on the call may have seen this slide before. David Chang over the years at the University of Missouri has done a phenomenal job compiling this data together. And so if we look all the way to the right-hand side, applicants have continued to increase. So last year was the highest number of applicants on record, somewhere in that 660 range. And essentially every single applicant, almost every single applicant who applied utilized signals, which is highlighted by that green dot. The subsequent next 3 blue portions are showing, the dark blue is showing the applicants in match. So you can see that not everybody who initially applied to ENT ended up submitting rank lists within ENT. And then the second blue is showing the USMD plus DO senior applicants within the match and just the proportion there. And then the light blue is showing just the USMD seniors. Over the years, starting from 2013, you can see we had less than 300 spots in total across the country. It's steadily increased over the years. Last year was the highest at 403, and 402 spots were ended up being filled through the match process pre-SOAP. And if you look over the years, really over the past 6 years, it's been pretty consistent, maybe 1, at most 2 spots in any given year in terms of unfilled spots across the country. Next slide. This is a question that comes up every year. Should you counsel your students to signal home and away programs? And if we go to the next slide, the answer is a resounding yes. A lot of this has to do with accurate data tracking, and for us as a council to be able to evaluate how the signaling process is working, we do need students to accurately portray where they are interested in, and that does include home and away programs. Next slide. So why 25 signals? So up until 2023, we had tried that low signal approach. Students were still applying to a lot of programs across the country, average of 79. And so, we were consistently seeing this problem where students were applying broadly across the country. They were spending a lot of money doing so. On the program side, from a program director and faculty side, it was quite burdensome to have to review hundreds and hundreds of applications, and especially a lot of applications of students who may not be particularly interested in your program specifically. And so once we've implemented the high signal approach, that number has come down almost to half. And so last year, students were on average applying to around 44 programs. Next slide. And this is not just within our own specialty, but again, if you look across the board at competitive specialties, this high signal effect has been pretty effective. So otolaryngology is highlighted there in the hot pink, but you can see also, orthopedics, neurosurgery, dermatology are also seeing a significant drop in average number of applications per applicant. Next slide. There's a lot of data to unpack here. And so if we start from the top left, so here, it says 666 total applicants. The 228 cross applicants is indicating the number of applicants who applied to at least 2 specialties. So they either dual applied, or maybe they applied to 3 or 4 specialties, but it's about a third. So it's a decently high number of ENT applicants are at least dual applying. If you look at the purple graph up on the top right, average applications per applicant, you can see, again, that steady decrease over the years as we've implemented that high signal approach. We seem to have stabilized around that 44 range. That number may continue to drop as time goes on. In terms of the applicant percentage breakdown from their degrees, so if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, that green, blue, red bar graphs, green is USMDs, red are DO graduates, and then the blue is highlighting the proportion of international medical graduates. And by and large, the proportions have stayed relatively similar over the years with minor changes. Next slide. Again, a lot of data on this slide. So this is looking at it from a program perspective. So the top middle graph that's titled average and median applications per program is just showing the number of average applications that programs were receiving. So in 2022, the average program was receiving 424 applications. Fast forward to 2026, that number has come all the way down to 228. So again, it's been very effective just in terms of reducing the burden of application review. That top right, dark blue and purple graph is showing, again, that cross application. So how many students are at least dual applying? And it's been pretty consistently about a third over the years. Next slide. In terms of signal sent, so in the top left, you see 99.5% of applicants sent signals. And so essentially, everybody's using signals at this point. On the top right, if you look again at that green, red, and blue, it seems like the USMD group seems to be utilizing the signals a little bit better compared to the DO and the international medical graduates. Yesterday, during the webinar, the recommendation was that applicants should utilize all 25 of their signals. There's really no downside to not using all of them. And so our recommendation is that students should absolutely try to maximize their chances and use all 25 signals. And I think by and large, the vast majority of applicants are doing that. Next slide. What's happening with the interview offers in relation to the signals that are being received? So if you look on the bottom right, program counts for this specialty. So there's 127 residency programs within otolaryngology last year. 126 programs participated in the signaling process. And so this is an automatic opt-in process. And so the program very specifically has to request to opt out in order to not participate. And the data that's being shown here is from 86 programs. And these 86 programs are programs that utilize Thalamus to schedule their interviews. And subsequently, ERAS was able to have access to this information. And 40 programs are using some other system to schedule their interviews. When you look at the sent signal in the top right, overall of the sent signal group, the interview rate was around 34%. If you didn't send the signal, the interview rate was around 1%. So again, we've seen this pretty consistently over the past 3 years. The odds of an applicant receiving an interview to a program that they did not signal is, it's extremely unlikely. Next slide. So this is the match data, post-match data from the NRMP. And by the way, I forgot to mention this table that I'm showing and really all the other data that we just reviewed, these are publicly available through ERAS and NRMP. And so if you just Google ERAS statistics, it's the first link that comes up and you can peruse all of this data much more in depth versus what I just went through. Otolaryngology is at the very bottom. As I mentioned before, there were 403 spots. We filled 402. You can see the subsequent breakdown afterwards of MD seniors versus MD reapplicants, DO seniors, DO reapplicants, how many IMGs matched, and then the number of unfilled. So it just gives you an idea of the makeup of the matched group. Next slide. So in summary, our recommendation to applicants: use all 25 signals. Please do recommend that your advisees that they signal their home program and their away rotation programs. And again, all programs are automatically opted in for the signaling process. And yeah, that's it for preface signaling. We'll wrap that up. Some future thoughts is perhaps we can increase transparency across the board. I do think that is going to be pretty program dependent. And so it's just something to consider. Next slide. All right, and I'll pass things back to Dr. De Silva.
Thanks, Dr. Yim. So we updated the standardized letter of recommendation this year. I think most faculty are familiar with this. It's used intermittently. We encourage all faculty to use this when they're writing their letters of recommendation. Certainly, you can submit a narrative with it. There's space for that. So what's different about this? The first half of this standardized letter is the same in terms of the demographic information and how well you know the applicant. We changed the comparison statement in the middle of this page here, where you're comparing to other applicants who are applying to otolaryngology, not just all medical students. And then we went to quintiles in terms of the rating scales. So you can see that difference as well. Next slide. And so we added a couple areas to this as well. Situational awareness and leadership were new to the standardized letter of recommendation. And then we changed, we removed the area about most likely or likelihood of pursuing academic medicine. Since everyone has a different pathway, certainly medical students don't know, what they're going to be doing later on in terms of fellowship or academics, private practice, hospital-based care. So we removed that statement. And then the final question about how confident are you that this applicant will be successful in otolaryngology, head and neck surgery? We just revised that statement as well. So a couple different questions, additions, and then subtraction of one. Next slide. And And then there's space for the narrative. So you can add your own narrative. You can write a separate letter narrative, as many faculty do, but just a little more space there to add your narrative for this. So we're encouraging all faculty to use this updated standardized letter of recommendation. Applicants had a lot of questions about it, and something they asked was, do I need to be asking my letter writer to use this form? And no, the answer is no. Our job is to inform the faculty about the updates. So you're on this call. This is available on the SUO Opto website to download and utilize. Share it with your faculty. And so we hope that everyone will use this. Next slide. Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Comer.
All right, and again, want to say a shout out to Dr. De Silva and Dr. Liu for the revision of that form. It took a fair bit of work on their part. But I'm going to go over the combined interview offer date, and then we will go to the Q&A session. It looks like we have one in the chat already, and so we'll get to that in just a minute. So combined interview offer date this year is November the 5th at 12 noon Eastern. We are asking programs to adhere to this and not offer interview slots that you don't have. We ask that programs do not schedule interviews until after that weekend. So on the 9th of November at 12 noon Eastern, that's when the scheduling can begin. And I will let you know that last night we had a majority of student applicants on the webinar, and we tried to stress the point that we do not want them contacting programs about accepting interviews before that time on the 9th. In order to keep the playing field even, we said, you're welcome to reach out if there's legitimate questions about some things, but please don't accept or decline prior to that time on the 9th. Applicant recommendations, again, don't try to schedule before the 9th, and then please don't try to hold on to conflicting interview offers that you don't intend. We did get a question last night about, well, what do you do between the two time frames? And the answer to that is this was intended to take the pressure off applicants so they don't feel like they're having to constantly refresh their email to check for new offers. And also to kind of preemptively look at travel plans to coordinate. Next slide, please. After the initial offers are accepted, additional interviews can be offered as positions are available. Opto doesn't really have a formal statement regarding second look open houses. They may be offered by programs at their discretion. But we don't have a formal policy on that. And then again, the interview calendar is a work in progress. This does require some input from programs to keep this accurate if possible. So for those on the call, we would appreciate, the SUO Opto would appreciate your input for this calendar. Next slide, please. And then again, here's a list of resources that were listed earlier, which you can screenshot this, or again, this will be recorded for later use if you need it. So, all right, next slide, please. All right, and so that ends the formal presentation portion of the program, and I'm going to try to MC us through some Q&A questions. So, Beth, I think you can stop the slides at this point, and I'm going to go just to the Q&A here, and we tell our home students and rotators not to expend one of their 25 signals on us. We know we are connected to one another already, and it gives the applicants one more to use elsewhere. And there are programs that do that. Again, from an Opto standpoint, when we're trying to obtain accurate data year to year, it does skew the data when programs are doing this, and we want to try to provide the most accurate, valid data that we can. All right, and then the second one, do we have data on match rates based on away rotations? For example, what percentage of applicants matched at programs they rotated at either home or away? And any of the panelists have any input on that? I personally don't know that off the top of my head.
I think there was a Texas Star study a couple years back looking at this, and I believe at that time, I think it was about 30% of applicants who did an away rotation eventually matched at that institution. But again, this is like a little bit of older data, kind of around the COVID era. So I don't know if that is entirely accurate for those sort of more recent years where, certainly away rotations have undergone sort of a little bit of an explosion.
Yeah, I would agree. I have not seen recent data for the last 2 years. There's certainly been surveys of program directors looking for that information, but we don't have that reported currently. I would just go back to the first question also. It's about equity too. We want to be on the same playing field for all applicants. And so that's why we have had the policy of ensuring that you signal both your home and any away programs that you rotate at where you remain interested.
Next comment in the chat, Dr. Cabrera Muffley said she published an article a few years back regarding the match rates. So thank you, Christina, for mentioning that. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Either put it in the webinar chat or in the Q&A session. While we're waiting on that, any of those to come up, I do want to put a plug in for the Opto Executive Council for anybody on the call who's interested. The applications or the possibility of applying will come out approximately September, and those will be reviewed. So if you can self-nominate, you can have somebody nominate you. And we're looking for people who are invested in otolaryngology education. This has been, just on a personal level, has been a terrific group to work with this year. I really appreciate everybody just stepping up and helping out. And then also the national meeting or the annual meeting will be in November as well. And information's come out on email and more will come out. So there's been a lot of work put in behind the scenes by Beth and others. Any other questions or comments? Okay. If not, any of the panelists have any other comments they'd like to make? Maybe a little shorter tonight. Okay, well, I want to thank all the panelists for helping out. Again, thank you for all the background work for everybody on the Opto Council. Please feel free to reach out. The ladies at Trialogic are wonderful for assisting you with information you need. Both last night's recording and tonight's recording will be up on the website. And certainly feel free to reach out individually to any of the Opto Council members with any questions. And we hope to see you at the annual meeting in November. And best of luck. Oh, looks like we had a comment come up. So, all right. Do we have what's the average number of aways these days?
Go ahead, Dr. Silva. You're going to say
I mean, I was just going to say, we put out a statement that if you have a home program, students shouldn't be doing more than 2 away rotations. So students that do not have a home program, they may do more because they need that experience. They need, mentorship. They need the letters of recommendation. But that was our recommendation and put on the AAMC website. Dr. Chow, did you have some other things to add there?
No, I was just going to say what you did.
Thank you, Haley, for the comment. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right. Well, we thank you for joining us on this webinar. Enjoy the World Cup if that's where your viewing is taking you next. And we look forward to seeing everyone. Thank you.